This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Taha-Rippett, a senior leader at First Watch Restaurant Group, exemplifies the kind of executive the Business Observer writes about every day online and every week in print. She's passionate and expert in her field, a top-notch communicator, and more. To read more about executives like Layla, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to subscribe. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Taha-Rippett, Senior Vice President of Supply Chain at First Watch Restaurant Group. Layla, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to have a moment to talk to you.
I always love our chats. We met a couple of years ago, Layla, when I thought, all right, I want to do a story about the price of juice and eggs going up, and I looked up First Watch because that's what I do, and I said, who knows about prices of foods? And you were the expert, so we had a really good conversation about that and life and career and all of that. In fact, I didn't even have the podcast then, Layla, but I knew you would be a great guest on this podcast.
That is so nice. Thank you. I remember that. We had a lot of fun.
We did. We talked a lot about your career and how you got started, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, we want our audience to get to know you a little bit. We just said First Watch and head of supply chain, but we're going to do 3 sort of personal rapid fire questions. All right, first one. What, if any, is your biggest phobia? What are you afraid of the most?
Oh my God, it's either snakes or alligators.
So we can say even both, snakes and...
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I recall, I think you've been in Florida like 5 or 6 years now.
I've been in Florida like over 20. But do you know,
20?
like even when I go to the zoo, I stay away from that whole exhibit. And then when I'm walking, I usually walk with a flashlight and I'm looking around everywhere.
Looking around. Have you seen an alligator like live in your travels in Florida?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. We lived on a golf course. And so they were there. And then they find their way out into the street. How does this happen?
They do.
Yeah.
They do find their way to the street. Okay, so keep snakes and gators away. How many hours of sleep do you need a night so that you're not cranky the next day?
7.
7, a solid 7?
Yeah, solid 7.
I like it. This one's going to be interesting because I know that you've traveled other places outside the United States. What is the longest plane ride you've ever been on, and to where?
South Korea, longest plane ride.
Yeah, how long is that?
It was a while ago, but I want to say I stopped along the way, and it probably took me 11 hours to get there because I was making a stop, but it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we're going to get started. We're going to talk about leadership and some of your mentors and some of your mentees. I know mentoring is very important to you. You and I have talked about that. But tell us a little bit about Layla early years. You had a teenage job, I know that, and tell us about the food industry and kind of how your career got started.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a Michiganian, born and raised in Dearborn. I'm first generation. My family is Lebanese. And they had grocery stores and bars in Michigan. And so I started out working in my family business. So food was just a thing, right? We were always involved and always working in it. And from that, I thought that maybe I would find my way out of the food industry. But once you're in it and you fall in love with it, it keeps you here. And so I'm so pleased to be able to say that hospitality is my career of choice. And I've been fortunate to work for some really amazing companies.
And I also recall after the family business, I believe you got a job at McDonald's, as I did. That's a good starting point. I was 14 working at a McDonald's on Long Island, New York. Tell us about that teenage job.
Yeah, so that was a really fun job. When I was working at McDonald's, a friend of mine, we both got jobs, and we were going through McDonald's and doing our training. And I had a manager who really took time to make me understand why everything that I was doing mattered to the business. She, on the other hand, had a manager who just told her to do this, and that was it. And so she left after she was asked to clean the restrooms. That was the end of that. I think you've heard this story before, where as he's explaining it to me, he's saying, people are going to come in. If the restrooms are clean, they're going to come in and stay in our restaurants and come more often. And I learned so much from just that little lesson that really helped me in my career, to be thoughtful about understanding what you do and why you do it and how you're part of a greater good.
Yeah, and those little things matter, right? Those details matter. And you and I have talked about First Watch's founder, Ken Pendery, and who unfortunately passed away about a year ago. But he was big on the details matter and those little things. Tell us about your experiences working with Ken and what you learned from him.
I have to tell you, I admire him so much and everything that he taught us. For me, what I remember the most is that culture matters. If you can keep culture in place, you can do anything. And so we really think about that a lot around here. Is this something that Ken would do? Shane and I have spoken about this together, that, Ken knew the power in a handshake in building a relationship, right? Like if you're talking with your suppliers, and we think about that all the time, everything we do, go high, go wide, go deep, and really build out a relationship and how much it matters.
Go high, go wide, go deep. What does that mean to you guys?
So
what does that mean to you?
Yeah, to me, and I say this a lot, is that when we're meeting with suppliers, we want to be able to go 5 levels up, 5 wide, 5 deep, to really understand their business. And there's no reason why they shouldn't do that with us as well. We want to build a relationship. We want to understand each other's businesses. And for us, especially on the supply chain side, and I know on culinary and ops as well, all of us, we think about anybody who comes in our back door will most certainly be a customer in our front door.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about supply chain. I want to get your perspective on this because, I know you guys seem to be really good on not having silos at First Watch where, supply chain talks to other units and other units talk to supply chain. But supply chain is pretty important, right? If you don't have the eggs, you don't have any French toast, and you don't have any stuff. I mean, it seems like a very high pressure job to me. For outsiders, tell us what does head of supply chain mean? I mean, what does your job entail?
My job is to make sure that we have supply in all of our restaurants. One of our commitments, we have 10. Number 8 is never 86 a product. I take that very personal. It's really important to me that our 500 plus restaurants have what they need, that they're getting the right product at the right time and hopefully at the right price as we go through this, but making sure we have supply so we can service all of our customers. So that is the goal, right? Keeping risk away, keeping supply in place, and making sure that we're delivering on quality. Those are my 3 pillars.
Yeah, those are great. And as you said, never 86, never be out of something so that the staff doesn't have to go tell a customer, we can't make X today.
If you've worked in a restaurant, you know what that's like.
Yeah.
And it's not a good thing.
No, for sure. And so tell us, how have you dealt with, I mentioned how when we first talked, and this was a couple of years ago, about prices, because that maybe it was a COVID thing. I forget why it was in the news then, but there was a supply chain shortage of some kind, and that's how you and I connected. But now there's the egg price bonanza, whatever we want to call it. How has First Watch dealt with price increases the last 6 months?
I'm not going to go too far into pricing, but what I will tell you is that First Watch has wonderful relationships with our suppliers so that we are constantly having our supply in place. And that is where we're focused on right now. Chris Tomaso, you've met Mel, Matt, Laura, how strong our C team is and how they're leading. And so the fact that we are customer focused first, I couldn't be prouder, and that they understand how important the relationships are with our suppliers, and our suppliers understand it as well. It is my job to make sure that I'm keeping First Watch first in line. And that's what we do.
Awesome. All right. Now, in your career, you've also talked about mentoring.
Yeah.
Tell us about the mentor side for you. Who have been some of your key mentors or important mentors, and what have you learned from them?
So you know a couple of them. So when you think about Eleni and Hunter,
Yes.
right? So Eleni's now over at Firebirds, and she's doing great.
Right.
For me, it's when people will come and say, "Hey, do you have some time to give?" Yeah, I've got all the time in the world to give. What is it that you're interested in, and what do you need help with? How can I help you? And so having that perspective is very important. But there's something else about mentoring that's important to me as well, Mark. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but it's to take my team and to align them with mentors who not necessarily are within our company.
Really?
It's
Okay.
really important for me to understand what is it they want to learn, who do they want to learn from, and let me find you the right mentor to learn that. Do you want to understand markets better? Or do you want to work on gravitas? Do you want to work on something else? What is it that's important to you? And let me put you with the right people. And sometimes those people end up even being supply partners who, on another level.
Do you worry, maybe this is not the right way to think about it, but do you worry that some of these people will poach your talent?
Do I? No, I don't.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I think First Watch is an amazing place to be, and there's a lot of room for people to grow, and we've seen it here, and I've seen it on my team. Could that happen in the future? For sure. Could I have stopped that? I don't think so. But, it's helping someone to get where they want to be. And that's what mentoring's about.
Yeah. Who would you point to as your mentors? Who have been some of your mentors, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah. So I still talk to two people who I reported to. They were both CEOs at organizations that I had worked for. I speak to them frequently. One of them is got a program where he does a give back to the local community on teaching hospitality. And that's very important to me. So it's like whatever I can do to help to get people interested in our industry. What can I do to help with that? So that's important to me. The other one is retired now. However, he's a market watcher. And as he watches markets, I'm able to bounce different ideas off of not pricing, but what is happening globally. What does the footprint look like as we think about a forward look 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, I'm sure information overload could certainly be something in your line of work. You have to decipher and be discerning about what information you choose to act upon.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can model things so many ways, but you need clarity in order to model.
Sure. Yeah, clarity is, definitely. Okay, when you're bringing on leaders, you're promoting leaders, or you're working with leaders, hiring people, what are some characteristics that you look for? What stands out to you in good leaders?
So knowledge is one thing, but to me, making sure that we've got the right culture fit, because if we can't get that right, that's going to fail. And because we do a little bit different here at First Watch than other organizations, and this is something, I remember when I met first with Chris and Shane, that I was like, I don't want to run a traditional supply chain team. And you've heard me say this before, making sure that Shane, who is closest to our consumer, understands, and our food, right, to understand what we're looking for and how we're doing things. So we do a sourcing exercise that's much different than anybody else that involves culinary on the front side. So making sure that people are nimble enough and agile enough that they can change their brain of what they've learned over time and say, I get that. I understand where you're going. That's something I can buy into, versus someone who's very rigid and says, this is step one. I've always done it this way, and it's what I'm going to do. So
at a much smaller scale, the Observer Media Group, the parent company of the Business Observer, we're much smaller in terms of our total employees, but we're very similar in terms of we like to say we don't have a manual, right? We want people to solve problems on their own. Now, you guys are obviously at a higher scale, but it's the same philosophy that you have to think about it differently. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've hired reporters from bigger media organizations in terms of the amount of readership they have, but they didn't fit in here because they wanted to know something every day. They wanted a guide. They wanted this very strict roadmap, and that's not us.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And for someone who is curious enough to want to understand the root cause of why something is or isn't, and then to take it from there and say, okay, I've got some ideas of how I can improve this. They listen, they learn, they understand, and then they're ready to put things into action.
Yeah, and we say it all the time. I try and say it all the time to the reporters, be curious, not cynical, right? Be curious about it, right? When you're talking to somebody, you don't know all the answers. That's why you're talking to the person. So be curious.
Yeah.
What's a great piece of leadership advice? Maybe it was something from Ken that you mentioned earlier, just in general. Maybe it was even your parents, but what's a great piece of advice that you've heard in your career that sticks out?
So I say this and I say it often, and it is don't overthink it. Let's just get to it and get through it. And we can always go back and fix things if we need to, right? But don't overthink it. Don't wait so long to make a decision that we've waited too long to make a decision, right? And there's nothing wrong with dissent. And let me explain what I mean when I say that. It's good. It's good and it's healthy to be creative and to ask questions and pose ideas that people have to challenge a little bit, because from that comes great innovation, comes great ideas, come ways to streamline the business, which is really, I think, we're at that moment in First Watch's history for the supply chain. It's about streamlining, right? Make things simple, easy, faster, quicker, so that we can move faster and quicker to everything that Chris has on the agenda of where he's taking us.
Yeah, which is pretty big.
We're here. Big.
I mean, we're here recording March 13th in the middle of the afternoon, and I think it was 2 days ago, March 11th, First Watch released its earnings report from calendar year 2024, and you guys passed $1 billion in revenue, a big milestone for a local company. Yeah,
and on Monday we also opened a restaurant. So there you go.
Keep opening, keep hustling.
Keep opening, yeah.
Yes. Going back to leadership, another question is, a question I have for you is, how have you dealt with setbacks or mistakes or things that did not go your way? Because that happens in all of our careers. What advice do you have, and how have you dealt with those situations?
So I've had those, as we've all had those. But, for me, it's as I've gotten older, I realize that there are some things that are not personal. Don't take it so personal.
Yeah.
You've done the best you can at that moment. You may so don't beat yourself up about it. It's very hard for people to let go. It dwells on you, right? Especially if you're somebody who really cares about what you do, right? You're proud to put your signature on your work, and it's so hard. You keep dwelling, saying, what could I have done differently? And that's why I get back to this, just don't overthink it.
Yeah. Yeah, don't take it personally. I have sometimes in the moment, your brain goes to take it personally right away. And at least for me, and then I have to do that, like sort of snap the wrist, right? Like pinch your, like, okay, this is not about you. This is a reflection on them, whatever it is. It's not a reflection on you. That's hard in the moment.
Well, I was at Bloomin Brands back in the day when there was a big layoff. Anyway, and I felt like, what did I do?
What did you do? Right, this is a reflection on you, even though intellectually you knew it wasn't.
Correct. And so I say that because as we look at our industry right now and we see what is happening in industry where there are layoffs and changes that are happening, people have to stop and realize it wasn't what they did. It was a situation bigger.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Layla, so we are, as I said, we're middle of March. We're recording this. What can we expect? I know you're, supply chain, and that's your division and department, but what can we expect from First Watch the rest of the year, either supply chain or just other exciting things happening? Tell us about First Watch 2025.
We've got some great limited time offers that are coming, so get ready. Next week we kick off with spring. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I really want you to go in and check it out. And then we'll follow up with summer, fall, and of course holiday. And Shane's just killing it, man. Somebody asked me, how would I describe Shane's food?
And Shane's the top chef of First Watch, right? Okay.
Yeah, you've met him before.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I said it's brave. Shane's food is brave, right? Culinary is brave.
Yes.
And I'm so proud of what they do, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. And so I would say, get out there, check us out, check out these limited time offers. Just killing it.
Layla, there's a future for you in marketing because always leave them wanting more. You didn't even know. You just did that.
I didn't even know. Yeah,
yes, there's a future for you there.
Do you think we're going to get more likes than Chris Tomaso because of that?
100%. Absolutely.
Right on.
Yeah, definitely. Taha-Rippett, Senior Vice President of Supply Chain at First Watch. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.